Madam Speaker, MDA adopts a balanced and practical approach in its regulation of Internet Content Providers or ICPs. And these include any individual in Singapore who provides any program for business, political or religious purposes, or any corporation or group of individuals who provide any program on the Internet. There are three forms of licenses for ICPs under MDA's licensing framework. Firstly, an individual license. Second, an automatic class license. And third, an automatic class license with the requirement to register with the MDA. So let me elaborate on these three categories. First, the individual licenses are issued to content providers which offer a television service through the Internet. Examples are MediaCorp's Toggle and Sin MSM. And individual licenses are also issued to news portals that report regularly on Singapore's news and current affairs and enjoy significant reach among Singaporeans. So 10 online news licenses have been issued since the scheme was implemented on 1st June 2013. That's the first category. The second category of licensing is applies to the rest of the ICPs which are regulated under automatic class licensing regime that has been in place since 1996. These licensees do not need to apply to MDA for individual licenses, but they are automatically class licensed once they operate their websites. And this remains a primary route through which the vast majority of websites on the Internet are licensed. By virtue of their class license, the ICPs have to comply with the conditions under the Broadcasting Class License Notification and the Content Guidelines in the Internet Code of Practice. ICPs that fail to abide by the code can be taken to task by MDA for having their class licenses cancelled or suspended. Since 1996, MDA has not had to cancel or suspend any ICP, which also means that it has not had to prosecute any party. Finally, the third category would apply to certain types of ICPs to which class licenses are granted automatically, but with the condition that they register with the MDA. Paragraphs 3 to 5 of the schedule of the Broadcasting Class License Notification spell out the types of ICPs that need to register with MDA. And they include ICPs who are political parties registered in Singapore providing any program through the Internet, and ICPs who are a body of persons engaged in the propagation, promotion, or discussion of political or religious issues relating to Singapore through the Internet. MDA also reserves the right to require ICPs who are in the business of providing through the Internet an online newspaper for a subscription fee or other consideration, or who are individuals providing any program for the propagation, promotion, or discussion of political or religious issues relating to Singapore through the Internet to register with it. So these are provisions already provided for and spelled out clearly in the schedule. And the need to move from automatic class license to class license by registration only occurs when an individual or body meets these criteria which is spelled out in the schedule. What does registration entail? It is fairly straightforward and would only require the applicant to provide relevant information such as contact details, a brief description of the website, key personnel operating it, and any information that might shed light on possible foreign funding. There are currently 8 websites run by political parties, 39 websites involved in the propagation, promotion, or discussion of religious issues relating to Singapore, and 4 websites involved in the propagation, promotion, or discussion of political issues relating to Singapore registered under this notification. As the regulator, MDA also exercises the discretion to invoke the clauses consistently, and if there are developments or trends suggesting a need to require registration on a new group or category of entities and to register them in a different form or manner, MDA will do so. And it is in this context that I would like to elaborate a little bit on MDA's decision to register the Independent in July last year, and most recently the Breakfast Network. As members would be aware, in July last year, MDA asked the Independent to register under the Broadcasting Class License Notification. Although the Independent describes itself as a newspaper, it was also clear from its stated aim of bringing in-depth perspective and analysis on political issues in Singapore that it intended to engage in the propagation, promotion, and discussion of political issues related to Singapore. Furthermore, the government had received specific information which gave it cause for concern over foreign interests to fund the Independent. So MDA asked the providers of the Independent to register, and as part of the registration to sign an undertaking not to receive foreign funding. It is a long-standing principle that foreign entities are not allowed to engage in Singapore politics. Foreign interests should also not be allowed to control, or worse, to manipulate our local media platforms, which are prime vehicles for influence. And this is not in itself new, this principle. All the 12 sites which MDA had previously registered for providing political content had already been gazetted as political associations under the Political Donations Act, and hence are already prohibited from receiving foreign funding. What is different in the case of the Independent is that it had not been gazetted as a political association, and part of its business plan was to obtain subscriptions and advertising revenue. Therefore, MDA had required as part of the registration that it signs an undertaking not to receive foreign funding. It is also for this reason that MDA had revised the registration forms to include such an undertaking. And the undertaking only requires that the organization does not accept foreign funding and is not a blanket prohibition on funding, which would render the site's intended business plan unworkable. So that particular prohibition applies specifically to foreign funding. The case of the Independent revealed potential problems when sites which engage in the propagation, promotion, or discussion of political or religious issues structure themselves as corporate entities to receive investments, including from foreign sources. Now, in the case of newspapers operating under permits issued under the Newspapers and Printing Presses Act, there are clear provisions to allow newspapers to be subject to provisions controlling foreign influence. The Broadcasting Act, which ICPs are regulated under, also recognizes this principle, but the class license does not contain specific provisions against this, as this particular scenario of foreign funding was not recognized back in 1996 when the class license was first designed. Having noticed this, MDA decided that cases similar to the Independent, where sites operated by corporate entities that engage in the propagation, promotion, or discussion of political or religious issues, and which had a greater possibility of coming under foreign influence through foreign funding, would be dealt with in the same way. And that's why MDA asked the Breakfast Network to register. MDA had earlier said that it will look into introducing more comprehensive safeguards within the Broadcasting Act to prevent foreign interests from influencing local politics through the Singapore media, whether in print, broadcast, or online. But it was necessary for MDA to act in the interim and to ensure that the providers of the Independent and the Breakfast Network are aware of the conditions from the outset, rather than for them to accept foreign investments into their corporate structure only to have to unwind this later. This would have caused them even more problems. The principle of not accepting foreign funding is something which responsible operators agree with. In fact, the Independent has stated that it accepts this principle. So in summary, the class license with the requirement to register is not new. It has been part of the licensing framework under the Broadcasting Act since 1996. In the cases of the Independent and the Breakfast Network, these have not been gazetted under the Political Donations Act, but they are running websites by corporate entities with the aim of engaging in the propagation, promotion, or discussion of political issues relating to Singapore. And MDA saw the need for them to sign an undertaking not to receive foreign funding as part of the registration. The class license with registration is an integral part of our licensing framework, and it has been used selectively but consistently. And this is the regulatory approach that MDA will continue to undertake in the future.